Hi, welcome to new video. In this video, we are going to talk about very important topic, developing a MapReduce application. So developing MapReduce application in Hadoop like writing, testing, debugging, and optimizing the program. So what are the steps we will take since this will cover the practical steps for developing the MapReduce application in Hadoop. So first step is write MapReduce function. So implementing map and reduce function and use unit tests to verify correctness. Second step is to write the program, create a driver to configure and run the program, test locally in your IDE with a small data set, right? And run on a cluster. Deploy the Hadoop cluster for a full data set, debug issues and using log and counters. Debugging, like use the IDE debugger for local testing, analyze cluster logs for distributed debugging, performance testing. So optimize with the combiners, proper partitioning and profiling. Use Hadoop profiling tool to identify bottleneck. So what are the steps we are following to provide the MapReduce application? So write map and reduce function, write a driver of program, and run it run on a cluster, debugging, performance testing, right? Afterwards, setting up, configure Hadoop, record site.xml, MapReduce, MapRed site.xml, set up your ID with Hadoop libraries. What would be the workflow? So write and test map and reduce function and test locally with a small data set, deploy to cluster and debug it. Here you will use the complete data set, optimize the performance. So in order to provide this type of application, we need to configure the APIs. So components in Hadoop are configured using Hadoop's own configuration APIs, like an instance of the configuration class found in the org.apache.hadoop.conf packages represents a collection of a configuration properties and their values. Each property is named by the string and the type of the value may be one of a several type including Java primitives such as Boolean, int, float, and other useful types such as string class, java.io file, and collection of string configuration read their properties from resources XML file with simple structure for defining name value pairs. Observe this code, simple configuration file. I'm zooming it. Simple configuration file. In that configuration properties, in that color, Al, and if you are taking it as a key, then it is a value for that allo, right? And you are closing this particular block. And same way size as a key and the value as a 10. So property weight, heavy. Suppose another you're taking weight and you're telling heavy as a value, and if this all true, then we are coming out. And now size, weight, and their values, and we are printing. This is how you can configure, right? Assuming the configuration file is in a file called configuration1.xml, we can access this. It's a properties using a piece of code like a configuration and instance of that configuration conf and new configuration conf dot now we are accessing add resource configuration one XML complete code now here assert that the conf dot get color is yellow, similar way get in size 10 and dot get width wide. So there are a couple of things to note. Type information is not stored in XML file. Instead, properties can be interpreted as a given type when they are read. Also, the get method allows you to specify a default value which is used if the property is in not defined in XML file, as in the case of did, right? Now, if you observe here, property not defined, but you want to access here this particular what you can say grid. So what they are telling, get method allow you to specify the default value. It may define like so combining resources. Things get increasing when more than one resource is used to define a configuration. This is used in Hadoop to separate out the default properties for the system defined internally in a file called as core default XML from the site specific override in core site XML. The file example defines the size and weight properties. A second configuration file configuration to in that property like size, weight, and you want to access these resources through these instances configuration. Configuration 1, configuration 2. Now properties defined in the resources that are added later override the earlier definition. So the size property takes its value from the second configuration file. Assert that conf.get int size 0 is 12, and this is key value for it, right? And however, the property that are marked as a final cannot be overridden in later definition. The weight property is final in the first configuration file, so attempt to override it in the second file, second fails. So attempting to override the final properties usually indicates the configuration error. So this results in warning message being logged to add diagnosis. Administrators mark properties as final in the daemons site file that they don't want user to change in their client side configuration files or job submission parameter variable expense. So configuration properties can be defined in terms of other properties or system properties. For example, the property size weight in the first configuration file is defined as size and weight, and these properties are expanded using value found in the configuration. So assert that conf.get size weight is 12 and heavy. So 12 map with the size, heavy map with the weight. System property take priority over property define the resources file like system.set property size 4 and 14 and assert that conf.get, right? So this is how this features is useful to overriding the properties on the command line by using d property equals to value JVM arguments. Note that while configuration properties can be defined in terms of system property, unless system property are redefined using configuration properties, they are not accessible through the configuration API. Hence, system.set property length and same way length you are defining like they are not accessible through the configuration API. So in this particular discussion, what we had covered, like developing MapReduce application, we have seen we have to follow few steps in order to implement the MapReduce application in Hadoop. Write MapReduce function, write a driver program, run on a cluster, debugging, performance tuning, setting up, like configuring Hadoop, what we have done now, and workflow. And this is the configuration process with respect to configuration 1.xml. And later we had used configuration 2.xml, then overrided our this process by uh, and then variable extensions. In next video, I will explain about the configuring the development environment, setting up the Hadoop for development, and what are the key steps we need to follow, right? For this video, uh, till here only. Thank you so much.